When we talk about common table expressions, usually we compare common table expressions with a virtual table or a value created by a subquery, right? So if a virtual table is created by a subquery, if it's not a common table expression, then it's a derived table. We can also use a subquery to create a value, right? And also, if we want to get a value, we can use a common table expression because a common table expression is a table. If we just want a value, that will be the value of a cell of the table, right? So we are going to talk about the common table expressions and derived tables and values created by a subquery. So we're going to talk about them together so we can make the comparison. So I want to start with the derived table versus the common table expression. Remember, we can use a common table expression to get a virtual data set, a virtual table. We can also use the common table expression to get just one value, right? If we just use the common table expression to get a single value, that would be, in that common table expression, we have just one row and one column. That's the value of that column of that row. And we can use a subquery to create a virtual table. That will be a derived table. We can also use a subquery to just calculate a value, right? So we are going to start with the virtual table. So in this first example, we are creating a virtual table and the table name is prod. We are using a subquery to create this virtual table. Once we have a virtual table, we just select all columns from the table. The code in this example is very simple, but we can have any code in this parentheses, right? In this pair of parentheses. So we can get very complex logic implemented. But for this example, the code is very simple. So we can run them. We get, so we got the virtual table, right? And we can also use the common table expression to create the same virtual table. So in SQL, we use this keyword with for creating a common table expression. And then after the keyword, we have the table name and then AS. After AS, we have a pair of parentheses. In the pair of parentheses, we have a subquery for defining the common table expression. Once we have a common table expression, we can just use it as a table. It's a virtual table, right? So I run the code. Okay, and these two examples both created a virtual table. They used the same subquery as their definition. Okay, but one was created as a derived table. The other was created as a common table expression. We're going to talk about the differences and the similarity between derived tables and the common table expression later. Okay, now I want to continue on with the second scenario. We just want a value. You just want a value, right? So if we just want a value, we can use a subquery to create the value, or we could use a common table expression. If we just want one value, keep in mind, that would be the value of a cell in the common table expression. So we will first use a subquery to do that. So look at this example. We want to get some product info. So we are getting data from the product table. We want the product name, list price, also the average list price. So that's the average for all product list prices, right? Also, we want to calculate the difference between a product list price and the average. Lastly, in the where clause, we have a condition. We want to get only the products which have a list price greater than the average. So if we use a subquery to get the average, you can see we need the average for the average column. We need the average for calculating the difference. We need the average for filtering, right? So we need the average, same average 3 times in our SQL query, in our SQL statement, because we are using the subquery. Therefore, we have to define the subquery wherever it's needed. In our example, 3 times. First time, second time, third time, right? And if we use a common table expression, remember, a common table expression creates a virtual table, right? So with AP, so table name is AP, and then we use this subquery to define the table. What we are wanting to do is to get the average of all products. So you look at this common table expression. We know the table name is AP. In this table, how many columns do we have, and how many rows do we have? Can you tell? So this is the virtual table, the common table expression. In this virtual table, how many columns and how many rows do we have? Excellent, we have just one column. One column and one row, okay. So we know the table name is AP. What is the column name? What is the column name of this common table expression?
Average price.
Excellent, it's here, right? And we have just one column for the table and one row of the table. In that cell, we have the average price. So we are calculating the average here in the virtual table, the common table expression. Once we have the table available, then we will use it here. So that's the average. We will use it for calculating the price difference. Remember, the difference between the list price and the average, right? It's here. And the average for filtering is here. So we want the average. We need to use the average 3 times in our example. If we use the subquery, you will define and run the same identical subquery 3 times. If we use a common table expression, we just do it once, right? You can see, let me see whether we can see both of them on one screen. So you can see if we use the common table expression here, the code is more streamlined. And this is the subquery. The code is more tedious, right? And think about 3 times versus once. If we use a common table expression, the code is also more efficient. And I also want to share a common use case with the class, and this type of use cases is commonly used in industry. Here, you look at this example. Take a quick look at the code. See whether you can see, you understand, or what we're doing here, right? Just take a quick look at the code. So we are creating an order report, but in that report, we are interested in only orders which have 5 or more items contained in the order. So the way to do it, we will create a common table expression. That's a virtual table. In the common table expression, we will filter out all the IDs, right? We filter out all the IDs which have more than 4 items, 4 products. Then we will get a data set. It's a virtual table. We will join that data set with other tables. So in our example, sales order header to get other columns we need. So the advantage of using this approach is we do some filtering in the common table expression. So when we do the join, we have much less data to join together, and that will improve the query performance. So we have quickly gone over the differences and the similarities between common table expressions and a virtual table or a value created by a subquery, right? Does anyone have any question or any comment?